by an important Russian government official. In this case, by the chief of Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, the SVR. Now, this is amazing for a few reasons. I mean, first of all, once again, I'm thankful to Reuters that they monitor Russian language media and pronouncements in Russian state-controlled broadcasts by Kremlin officials about what the Trump administration is doing, because otherwise we wouldn't know. In this case, the Russian spy chief visiting Washington, it was first reported on Russia 1 television, then it was written up by the Itar TASS Russian news agency. Reuters was able to pick up that announcement. Based on Russian state media, they were able to get that announcement from the Kremlin. And that's how we learned that last week, quote, the head of Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service met outside Washington with American intelligence officials. He reportedly met with the Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coats, and other officials. After that initial report from Reuters, the Daily Beast followed up with news that the head of Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service not only came to the United States and met with Trump-appointed National Intelligence Director Dan Coats, he also met with Trump-appointed CIA Director Mike Pompeo. And then the Washington Post dumped this whole cake in icing and sprinkled it with jimmies when they announced that it wasn't actually just the head of the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, the SVR, it was also the head of the FSB, which used to be the KGB, and also the head of the GRU, which is Russia's military intelligence service. All three of their spy chiefs, including the chiefs of the two agencies who mounted that attack on our election in 2016, they all came to the United States last week. And there were meetings with Dan Coats, and there were meetings with Mike Pompeo, and there were apparently other meetings with other officials that we don't know about. And apparently our government was going to make no announcement about this. But luckily the Kremlin let us know. Shane Harris's report on this in the Washington Post this morning says, quote, current and former U.S. intelligence officials say they cannot recall so many heads of the Russian security apparatus coming to Washington all at once. Yeah, it does seem kind of weird. What were they all doing here? And why was this not being kept secret from the Russian public, but it was being kept secret from us, by our government? Here's the other part of this that is mind-bending. Of these three Russian intelligence chiefs, who were apparently brought to the United States last week to meet with the Trump administration in secret, the first one who was reported, the guy who's the head of the SVR. SVR is the Foreign-Facing Intelligence Service in Russia. This is their service that puts spies in other countries. Don't see why there's any reason why you wouldn't invite him here. Well, one of the specific reasons you might not have that guy here, that guy in particular here, is that since 2014, he's been sanctioned by the US government. He was the head of the lower house of parliament in Russia when Russia invaded Crimea. And the Obama administration imposed sanctions on Russian government officials over that attack on Crimea, that annexing that piece of a neighboring country. The guy who's now head of the SVR, he was one of the named figures who was sanctioned as an individual. And therefore, we believe, he is barred from entering the United States. So then, how did he enter the United States last week? The Trump administration has not given an explanation as to how this official who's been sanctioned and has frozen assets and is barred from the United States, the Trump administration has not explained how this guy was allowed to enter the United States. We've talked with experts on Russian sanctions who've told us that there can sometimes be a special dispensation made for a person who's sanctioned and is barred from entering the United States, but the US government, for some reason, determines that there's a good reason to bring them here anyway. In such an instance, as far as we can tell, the remedy is that the Secretary of State can personally intervene, can choose in an individual instance to disregard the sanctions on that person which bar them from entering the United States. The Secretary of State can decide to provide an individual visa for that individual person for that individual visit at the Secretary's discretion. So we called the State Department today. Hey, is that what happened here? Did Rex Tillerson give special dispensation, a special permission, a special personally approved visa to the head of Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service to come over here secretly last week to meet with Trump administration officials? The State Department answered our question. They told us this, quote, visa records are confidential under Section 222 subsection F of the Immigration and Nationality Act, INA. Therefore, we may not comment on the details of individual cases. To be clear, I don't want to know about any other individual visa cases. We're just trying to figure out why and how the head of Russia's spy service, the head of Russia's foreign-facing intelligence service, who is banned from entering the United States, was nevertheless greenlit and let in secretly, and we wouldn't have known about it until the Kremlin started bragging about it. When it comes to the United States and the Trump administration enforcing sanctions of all kinds against